If someone were to ask you which sport you thought caused the largest amount of catastrophic injuries each year, what would you say? Most would answer this question with football or baseball, some would answer with basketball, and some may even go out on a limb and answer with gymnastics. Surprisingly, all of them would be wrong. Believe it or not, cheerleading would take the lead. More than 70% of direct catastrophic injuries in women's college sports between 1982 and 2009 happened in cheerleading. However, cheerleading technically isn't a sport, right? Debatable. In fact, this great debate has been ongoing for many years throughout the United States and the NCAA. But why? The primary reason cheerleaders all across the United States want this quote-unquote activity to be officially declared a sport is not only to increase safety regulations, but to also be rightfully recognized as athletes. As a competitive cheerleader myself, I recognize firsthand all of the hard work, dedication, blood, sweat, and tears that goes into not only compiling a routine for competitions, but to perform stunts and tumbling at games and sporting events. Cheerleading is a dangerous, competitive, and strenuous activity that needs to be declared a sport across the board. The Oxford Dictionary defines the word sport as an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. If anyone has ever seen a competitive or high school cheerleading competition, they would know that cheerleading teams today are full of skills which require immense amounts of physical exertion when it comes to stunting and tumbling during their routines and at sporting events. In 2006, ESPN compiled a list of the 60 most difficult sports, ranking cheerleading as number 52. Cheerleading beat out other strenuous activities such as shooting, equestrian, and roller skating, to name a few. Even though ESPN has declared this activity on their most difficult sports list, there are still skeptics and disbelievers out there. Mariah Rivera, a cheerleader at the University of Maryland, tore the anterior circulate ligament in her left knee as a junior at Centerville High School. But despite her injuries, she still likes cheerleading and continues to do the sport. I just wish people would recognize us. A lot of people still think cheerleading is standing on the sideline yelling, "Go team," she states. Long gone are the days when cheerleaders' only job was to look pretty, shake her pom-poms, and scream at the top of their lungs hoping for crowd interaction. Why should cheerleading not be considered a sport when it requires a complex set of skills, physical fitness, and real guts to do what they do? There is no question that cheerleaders today are athletic, and even disbelievers call cheerleading an athletic activity. But what would it really mean for cheerleading to be considered an actual sport? Other than a matter of respect at stake, for starters, the sport as a whole would benefit from a wealth of additional resources that other female sports already receive today. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 requires that equal funds be available for all female athletics, thus giving cheerleading a competitive slot among budgets when it comes to funding for athletics. Officially classifying cheerleading as a collegiate and high school sport would additionally lead to better coaches with safety training, cheerleading-specific trainers, and a more balanced playing field. The benefits are endless, but obtaining these benefits are a different story. The argument whether cheerleading should be granted sports status is one that has escalated into a fierce debate over the past year, even though the debate has been around for many decades. At one end of the argument, there are coaches like Molly Vealing, UCLA's Spirit Squad advisor, who pointed out gruesome injuries, long hours, the agonizing training, and those ultra-intense competitions as proof that cheerleading is much more than a stage for the prettiest girls on campus. On the other hand, there are disbelievers like Maria Burton Nelson, former Stanford and professional basketball player and national renowned professional speaker on women's sports issues. Nelson states that although cheerleaders are athletic without question, and although the activity requires strength, stamina, and balance, she believes that cheerleading should be abolished, period. This boils down to her reasoning in stating that women are only cheerleaders to show off their bodies, show off their underwear, and shake their breasts around. Although appearance is still an important factor, cheerleading head coach at Georgia Tech and veteran cheerleading judge Lauren Gerwizek states that people that are older think back to what cheerleading was like in school during their time and cling to those stereotypes, but what they don't see are the changes. They don't see what's going on behind closed doors. In addition to current cheerleading coaches and cheerleaders themselves, the American Medical Association says cheerleading should be considered a sport because of its rigors and risks. If you ask any cheerleader out there, they will agree with you that standing on the sidelines yelling "Go Team Go" is not a sport, but that the yearly competition season cheerleaders participate in is as challenging, if not more difficult, than any other sports they've played. Even some unlikely individuals are on the cheerleader side in this debate. Take Georgia Tech senior King Harrison, for example, who played soccer and basketball in high school. Harrison states that he believes the only difference between running an all-out sprint for 2.5 minutes and a cheerleading competition is that in a cheerleading competition, you're running an all-out sprint for 2.5 minutes, but you're holding two 50-pound weights above your head. Many states today still don't recognize cheerleading as a sport, and neither does the NCAA. But how far have we come in reaching our statewide recognition goal? In April of this year, New York officially declared cheerleading as a competitive interscholastic sport in public schools across the state. The classification will ensure that coaches are properly trained and schools would be required to follow university safety standards. In June of this year, the American Medical Association officially designated cheerleading as a sport, which means they support having the appropriate accrediting bodies declare cheerleading as a sport, and they support better safety measures. Shortly after, in July, the University of Maryland became the first Division I-A school to recognize competitive cheerleading as a varsity sport and count it towards their Title VI requirements. Today, competitive cheerleading is one of the fastest growing and largest growing activities in the country, with more than 200,000 high school and college cheerleaders attending off-season all-star camps to better themselves as athletes and improve their skills. Currently, as it stands today, 22 different states' high school governing bodies recognize cheerleading as a varsity sport, and although cheerleading is not a sport yet in New Jersey or Connecticut, 34 states in the United States now recognize cheerleading as an official sport. In conclusion, there are two solid and great points to this great debate, and the war is far from over. The world of cheerleading has a long way to go before it reaches statewide recognition and to be recognized by the NCAA as an official sport. However, with so many high-profile allies on our side, we stand a good chance of finally receiving the recognition and resources we deserve as competitive athletes. With cheerleading being the leading cause of catastrophic injuries in female athletes at high school and collegiate level, it's hard to say this sport doesn't deserve recognition, positive reinforcement, and additional resources. While there are still disbelievers and doubters out there, cheerleading is continuing to make progress. Cheerleading is a dangerous, competitive, and strenuous activity that needs to be declared a sport across the board.